Well, Ed, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thanks very much indeed. Good to see you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, where are you joining us from?
I live in the furthest north-east bit of England on the Scottish border, about as far away from London as you can get without going over into Scotland.
Okay. What is and because I don't know, all I know is the regional soccer rivalries.
Yeah.
What what do uh what do the London folks think of you? I guess Northerners, huh?
Well, that's very interesting. I think they call us Northern monkeys. I don't know why. I think they think we're kind of flat cap, wearing a flat cap, grubbing around in some sort of post-industrial smog,
Uh,
with whippet dogs at our heels, and we fly pigeons and that sort of stuff. That's the sort of archetypal view of a metropolitan elite Londoner, looking at a northern person. But I think in a funny sort of way, like the middle of the country, I mean, a lot further south than us, is sort of closer to that stereotype. We're so far north, we're kind of out the other side of that and just, rummaging around in a piece of very unoccupied countryside, beautiful coastline, lovely hills, castles everywhere. And there's very few people here. I think this county where I live, Northumberland, is the least densely populated county in the UK.
hmm. Okay. Yeah, because when I think of the UK, I think of very overpopulated, lots of people, not a lot of countryside left.
Yeah.
But it appears you live in some absolutely breathtaking countryside
Yeah.
yourself.
It's huge, great. And Northumberland's kind of, I've just been out hunting the last, well, three times in the last week on horseback with falcons, chasing crows, trying to catch crows
Uh-huh.
with peregrine and saker and gyr falcons. Um, and it's just that the expanse of view is absolutely incredible. You see for 100 miles on a good day, and there's just it's sort of rolling upland, loads of sheep, loads of cattle, small villages, old villages, and the reason was, I think, we had a like a 300-year border war with the Scots,
Uh-huh.
and the Scots kept coming over and devastating the place. We kept doing the same to them, and I live literally right on the border now, about 2 miles from it. And so nobody ever put down futures. Nobody could afford to. Nobody farmed much for next year because they just lose it all in 5 minutes in one overnight raid,
Yeah.
and get all their livestock lifted and taken away. So it's been a almost like a kind of corridor of emptiness between England and Scotland, like a great big buffer zone, like a frontier. And
Hmm.
a lot of Scots and Northern English, when they, as a result of that poverty, moved across to America for better times, better opportunities. And so the old hillbillies and stuff in the Appalachians, all those boys there were largely border Northumbrians and
Uh-huh.
border Scots who who became quite good cowboys because they'd had quite a lot of practice at running around on horses killing people.
Yeah.
Uh, so they were that kind of folk.
So this is like the movie Braveheart.
Yeah, that's a wee bit further north, although Berwick, where I live, well, the nearest town to where I live, changed hands 14 times during that war. English one day, Scots the next. And every time that changed hands, they killed all the population. And William Wallace, old Braveheart, when he was executed in London, he was quartered and his arm and shoulder was hanged off the bridge at Berwick, where I live,
Oh
which
wow.
is which is right on the border. And so the River Tweed, like the Tweed cloth that comes from the River Tweed, or the sheep country there, that is the border, and it's just right next to me. And yeah, poor old Braveheart, or part of him, finished his days up here and got buried in the town at a place they call Wallace Green.
Huh. Huh. Okay. Interesting bit of history there. And then I didn't know that there was a Tweed River because one of my questions was going to be, if I was going to come hunting with you, would I have to don a tweed sport coat and a tie? Because I can't think of anything more uncomfortable than hunting in a tie.
you know, well, I've been wearing a tie for the last few days, and it's really, really hot. Well, for an Englishman anyway, it's hot.
Uh huh.
Um, not Texas temperatures, but yeah, if you go like fox hunting, let's say, and there's so many different types of hunting I'm representing under the bracket of natural hunting. So that's really
Mm-hmm.
any dog. So it could be a lurcher, terrier, could be a falcon, ferret, as well as mink hunting. stag hunting.
Define lurcher.
Lurcher is a crossbreed running dog, and it's very traditional over all parts of the UK. And they're basically a cross between a very fast animal like a greyhound and a clever dog like a working collie.
Okay.
And so they produce this thing that hopefully is really fast and really clever. Sometimes you get something that's not very fast and not very clever, and kind of everything in between. But we breed lurchers a lot here, and we hunt hares, rabbits, deer with them. They're just fast sight hounds, so they just hunt by sight
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to scenting hounds. So if you came here, which I hope you do, it'd be brilliant to have you. Love to have you here. Come and see what we do. It'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'd just love it if you did. And the cross links we've got with folks from America, France, particularly Ireland, it's just you just realise that everyone's got the same kind of culture, and you can just slot into that happily wherever you go. But if you went fox hunting, and the fox hunting season is due to start, well, for us it's tomorrow,
Uh-huh.
early morning, 6 o'clock job, you'd be wearing a tweed coat, which is just the local garb, really,
Yeah.
and a tie and a hat, and uh, and then later on in the season, when it gets more to like 11 o'clock meets, like a daytime hunt, that's smarter again. That's we dress not dress to impress, but we look smart out of respect to the landowners whose land we are lucky
Yeah.
enough to be
Well, I get
invited to.
it. I mean, there's a lot of pageantry there and tradition,
Yeah,
but Americans are like, well, if it's not, Kuyu or Sitka, like it's not hunting clothes.
it's really different. I mean, we have a lot of that as well. Deer
Mm.
stalking and duck shooting and geese shooting, and all those boys are in camo, and that's what they do. Hunting hasn't quite caught up with it, and I think it is a throwback to that
Yeah.
custom ritual tradition stuff that we like to keep going.
Hmm. I'd say the one caveat for American sportsmen is the wing shooters, like traditional upland, hardcore, maybe even quail guys. They are a little more, I would say, stylish the way they present themselves. The
Okay.
guns that they take into the field are oftentimes a lot nicer than just your average 12 gauge duck gun. Like a duck hunter is not the same thing as a quail hunter. Like they
Right.
are
Okay.
two totally different groups of folks, and different dogs, right? I mean,
Yeah.
upland
Yeah.
dogs are not the same as your lab that sleeps at the foot of your bed. I mean, those are working dogs that stay in a kennel
Yeah.
traditionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sure. Yeah. We've had where I live a lot of high upland for grouse.
Yeah.
So a lot of grouse live on the heather moorlands, and they keep the gamekeepers keep all the predators away as much as they can, and so you get a massive, rich diversity of upland wading birds. Non quarry species,
Yeah.
just birds being protected there.
And
So
so the gamekeepers are what? Who are they?
well, they're employed. Well, not largely employed. Some guys do it for the fun of it, but on big shoots, you have a gamekeeper who is, and these guys wear tweed. I mean, they're in tweed everything. They've got tweed breeches, tweed waistcoats, tweed caps, and tweed coats.
Uh,
They are keeping the tweed industry going. Very very traditional look, and those are quite smart shoots. Quite expensive, and they spend all their life rearing the birds that might be shot or protecting the habitat and the biodiversity of the habitat
mm-hmm.
for optimizing shooting. So they are full-time gamekeepers.
Okay. And what kind of predators are native to northern England there?
Well, all we've got left, we got rid of the bears and the wolves and most of the golden eagles. So apex predators are a bit thin on the ground, sort of wear it.
Uh,
Um, and you would have the red fox, badgers. Badgers will hoover up everything and anything. And we
yeah.
got this crazy scenario going on over here where badgers are really protected by law. If you mess with a badger, you're going to jail.
Mm.
Um, and as a result of that, everything under a badger in the food chain, hedgehogs, voles, eggs, chicks, nests, everything are trashed. And we're looking at that again now because that's become a real problem.
Uh-huh. So are grouse native to that area then? Those aren't
Yeah.
released birds, those are native birds.
No, those are all native. I mean, yeah, Northern England, the middle of Northern England, the uplands, and Scotland particularly, are grouse country, and they're just native. And so this season, for example, we had a very bad nesting breeding season earlier on this year in April, and nobody is shooting grouse this year. They've just gone. There's not enough. Got to look after the population. Grouse is off the menu, boys. No grouse to be shot this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and kudos to the sportsmen for taking that,
Yeah.
because that wasn't something that they put into like law. We're canceling the season. You guys are just like, we're not participating.
Yeah. We just looked at we did the chick count in April. Just went, nah, not happening.
Okay. So kind of like our bobwhite quail are boom or bust. If you get the right rainfall, you're going to have a good season. If you don't, there's not going to be many birds around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love grouse hunting. I've taken my lab, which we don't have grouse in Texas. We have to go west to New Mexico is the closest place for me. But
Okay.
blue grouse, and she's not a pointing dog, but she can flush them up and retrieve them. So we have a good time. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So what kind of deer do you have there? Because I have looked at possibly at some point booking a hunt in Scotland and staying in like a castle and doing a red stag hunt.
Yeah, super. Well, they got red deer, seeker deer, fallow deer, roe deer, muntjac, like a small deer.
Oh, the one with the crazy teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. They kill dogs. And Chinese water deer.
Okay.
Yeah. Down south they're riddled with it. We don't have them here. We don't have those up here. But down south, yeah, people going for walks with their Labradors and they go scooting around in the bushes. Next thing, it's got a muntjac tusk straight through its rib cage.
Yeah.
They're nasty things. Well, are protective,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm more hunting with dogs, natural hunting and animals,
Yeah.
than let's say shooting or fishing, because they've just got a different dynamic, and I'm basically not qualified to speak on their behalf because I don't know it as well as they do, and they're doing quite a good job protecting their activity.
Are you familiar with the history of the fallow deer? And it's been introduced all over the world, right? But it's a native species for you guys, I do believe.
I think so. Yeah, I'm again. We don't have them. We don't have them up this neck of the woods. They're further down south.
Well, so my PH in South Africa is explaining to me how these fallow deer have taken over the Eastern Cape. I mean, they're everywhere. They're prolific. And he said that it was an Englishman, and I can't remember the guy's name, but I think it was actually 1800s. They were, colonizing Africa, and they didn't like the taste of the African venison. So like kudu and waterbuck and all these things, they're like, this is gross. So they brought fallow deer over, and they got out of whatever enclosure they were in at some point, and now they're everywhere. Yeah. But he said it was because of the English. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah. And then you look at Texas, and we have some of their aoudad, the Barbary sheep. We have them all over parts of Texas, and those came from the Ivory Coast traditionally.
Right.
So,
Goodness.
So what kind of dogs do you have?
I myself have a lurcher, and he is crossbred greyhound collie crossed with a greyhound bull Bedlington Terrier, which is a very specific local breed to me here. It's from the same county as I come from. So he's probably about 26 inches at the shoulder, very bright, very trainable, very fast, and quite a hard dog. He's not he's a tough dog.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a bit of all those animals put together have come out in him. And so he as a lurcher experiment has worked quite well. And he was given to me because a lot of that happens, just friends.
Yeah.
He was given to me by some guys about 30 miles from here who live in a mining community, coal mining. So pretty grassroots, pretty blue collar boys, and they hunt like mad. That's what they do. They run their whippets, greyhounds, lurchers. When they had a strike, 1982, I think it was. They had no money for about a year because they're on the strike, and they kept the whole community alive with what they caught. So they'd come back out after a night and divide the deer up or the hare or rabbit, give it to all the people in the street, and they basically lived on what they could steal out of the fields, like potatoes and turnips, and crops, and hunting with their dogs. So their bond with their dogs is incredible. You know, they never forget that.
Yeah. Okay, so you just have the one dog, the lurcher?
No, I've got a little terrier as well, a little Welsh terrier. Well, he's from Wales.
Uh-huh.
He's a breed of dog called a Sealyham Terrier, which you might have heard of, but they're Welsh. They're originally used for badgers and otters back in that's how they were bred. So a tough little dog.
Mhm.
Although mine isn't, he's really soft.
Oh, you'd have
Um,
to be to mess with a badger. Jeez.
I know, I know. I think what they were used for was just to mark a badger, so they'd go down the set and then just
Yeah.
stand off it and just bark and bark and bark until somebody could get down to them and help dispatch the badger. I don't think they'd get stuck into a badger
Yeah.
because that'd be pretty messy, and just pretty grim. So yeah, they were a breed that almost died out, and that's actually the reason I got him, to keep the bloodline going. And
Uh-huh.
they used to be very famous or celebrity dogs back in the sort of 40s, 50s. People like Alfred Hitchcock had one. Princess Margaret had two. So they suddenly became like celebrity dogs because all the big cheeses
Mm.
had them. But that's dropped off and just hardly anybody has them anymore. But they hunt in packs. They're little pack dogs. So they go out in like 10 or 12
Uh-huh.
Sealyhams after rabbits and rats and that kind of thing.
Okay. So but you don't have any of the like traditional foxhounds or anything like that?
Well, I've got two foxhound puppies at the minute,
Okay.
because we all like subscribe to a hunt, which is like a central organization where there's a huntsman and a kennel huntsman, all these guys looking after the dogs or the hounds. And there'll be about 70 hounds there. So they keep them, feed them, train them, exercise them, and then we just go hunting with them on a Saturday or a Tuesday. We go and
Okay.
join in. But during the breeding season, we know when they've had their whelps, when they've had their pups, instead of keeping them all at kennels, which would just get quite hectic with like 70 adult dogs, 30 puppies,
Yeah.
what they do is they split them up, brother and sister, and they farm them out to people like me, who look after them like Airbnb for hounds for about
Okay.
6 months. So
Uh-huh.
we look after these hounds. They come in, they live outside because they're outside animals, but we bring them in the house all the time, and they just smash the place to pieces, eat everything. They're kind of semi-domesticated. We take them for walks in town so that they can see cars and people and cats and things like that,
Uh-huh.
and hens. So they get used to all that, and then we give them back. I mean, they kind of tell you when they want to go back. They become impossible. You know, you take them out for a walk and they're gone. You
Yeah.
never see them again. So I guess we'll hang on to them till about October, and then send them back to the kennel, and they'll start hunting the following year.
Right. Okay. But you call them your dogs? Like you actually do own them, or the kennel owns them, and then you pay a fee to the kennel to go hunting?
Yeah, the kennel owns them. They
Okay.
belong to them. They've bred them the way they want to breed them, and they
Uh-huh.
sometimes breed our pack because where we live is very hilly, real hill stuff. I mean, if it was any more hilly, you wouldn't be able to ride a horse over it. It's that kind of hilly.
Yeah.
So we ride probably at the extreme of what you can take a horse up and down. Um, and those hounds are separate, different from a lot of bloodlines of English hounds,
Mm-hmm.
in that they've come from the Lake District, which is really mountainous, and all the hunting there's on foot because you couldn't ride a horse in the Lake District; it's too steep, too rocky. And so we've got these much faster hounds that are much lighter built, uh, and they cross in amongst our hounds, so into our pack. So they choose the breeding, they select the
Uh-huh.
bloodlines, and they belong to them. And we basically just look after them for 6 months,
Yeah.
you know, because we want to help.
And then
Uh,
you're a member of the club, and so
yeah, and then
that's yeah.
we're a member of the hunt. You know, basically anybody can join us. Well, I don't think there's any prerequisites
Yeah.
that would not let you join, as long as you
Uh-huh.
got a horse. Or a lot of people go on foot, they just go in cars and stuff, and they pay a different sort of subscription. But we all subscribe to that hunt, and that keeps it going.
Yeah. Um I think and we'll talk about this kind of transition into this topic and why you formed this organization called the Hunting Kind. But how has in your lifetime, how has the public perception of hunting changed in England?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I'm 55,
Right.
so I'm probably one of these people at around about that age that did quite a lot of hunting before it was banned in 2004, and then 20
Wait,
years.
you guys had a hunting ban in 2004?
Yeah, hunting with hounds or hunting with dogs
Mm.
was not exclusively banned, but it was largely banned. I mean, you can still do little elements of it legally, but basically the big traditional fox hunting brigade was legislated against in 2004, and we feel really bitter about that because it was just a piece of law that came in as a sort of political stunt and a bit of a jab at a political class. So it didn't have any research or evidence or anything.
Yeah.
There was no reason to say fox hunting is not a necessary pursuit or an activity for wildlife management. They just banned it. And I think the gig was, we had this prime minister called Tony Blair,
Mm-hmm.
and he was from the Labour Party, which we've got again now. And he spent something like 700 hours of parliamentary time debating fox hunting. And then as soon as he got that in, everyone was happy with him, or his side were happy with him. And then when he decided to go to war in Iraq, he just sneaked it through in 7 hours, and everyone went, "Yeah, sure, do what you like, because you've stopped those guys fox hunting. You can take us to Iraq anytime you want."
Huh.
And it was that was mental, absolutely bananas.
Yeah. And so, what is it still banned?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and we've got yeah, it is banned. I mean, largely banned. You can still go out with a lurcher and hunt a rabbit.
Uh-huh.
You can still use a terrier to kill a rat. You can still use a falcon to kill a crow or a rabbit. You can still go fox hunting, but they restrict you to 2 hounds because normally we'd take about 30
Yeah.
hounds. They restrict you to 2 hounds as long as those 2 hounds are like flushing cover to a line of shotguns, so the shooters can shoot it. So you can still do that. So it's not like the actual ethical side of it or the moral side of it was legislated against, because you can still go out with 2 hands and catch or flush a fox and
Yeah.
shoot it. So it's a bit of a crazy one, really. It doesn't really make any sense at all. It's just prejudice. So we're fighting back against that, and using all the arguments, because we've now had 20 years to look at it, and the fox population that we used to love conserving, to have a balance of nature. We never hunted during the breeding season, during the mating season, during the summer. We just didn't. We let the foxes breed and get away. Um, and now that we've had our hand taken off the job, so to speak, people go out shooting 365 days of the year, daytime, nighttime, and the fox is just being eradicated.
Huh.
And we're really, we're effectively conservation hunters at heart. We're not
So
just
who's
guys.
doing that? Like predator callers are doing that?
Yeah, sometimes the government has hired people to do it because there's a problem with the fox population, so they think. So they do that. The gamekeepers would do it because foxes predate on the birds that they're trying to
Mhm.
rear. But it's basically, in the past there used to be just a countrywide agreement that you just have a bit of a balance of everything. Whereas
Mhm.
because we got our hand taken off it, there's no balance, and people can just shoot foxes as a sort of sport in itself, and for them it's the more the merrier.
Yeah. So I mean, thermal hunting is a big part of Texas culture for pigs, coyotes, bobcats.
Yeah,
Are thermal optics allowed in your region?
yeah, we can use thermal optics. Um, I mean, now in Scotland, for instance, if you want to go stalking red deer up there, that dynamics changed last year, September, because the government was trying to do a kind of greenwashing thing where they were planting loads of trees and getting carbon credits for net zero carbon emissions. So they bought loads of farms, planting loads of trees, loads of subsidies for that. And then somebody said, well, "What about the red deer?" And they're like, "Why are you talking to me about red deer? I'm planting trees." And they're like, "Well, because red deer will go along and nip the top off
Yeah.
every single tree you've just planted. You won't have any trees." And they went, "Oh, right, okay. How many deer do we shoot a year? Right, can you treble that? I want them all shot, day, night, red stag or red hind, no seasons, just
Mhm.
shoot them all." And so now people are just shooting stags and getting paid £70 for a stag to shoot it, as
Mm.
opposed to the other way around. Um, and they're just leaving them on the hill for crow food. And so the sort of respect for that wonderful, iconic red stag quarry species is just being treated like a rat.
Ugh. Yeah, I don't. There's only one place I can like compare that to in the United States, and that's Hawaii. because they are overrun with axis deer, which is not native. Hawaii doesn't have any big game animals that are native to the islands. And when I went there to hunt axis deer, not my outfitter, but his buddy who we hung out with for a day, he was a paid eradicator and would take a thermal scope out and shoot axis deer and just leave them there. And for me, like coming from Texas, I mean, you see this is an axis skin on the back of my chair here. Axis is big. You know, that's a respected trophy that we are, you know, after in Texas.
Yeah.
And there they just treat them like vermin. So, but I get
Well,
it. I mean, they're you know, hard on the crops, hard on the water table. That's a really, you would think Hawaii and being tropical, they'd have plenty of water. Fresh water's sometimes hard to come by. They're in a drought right now, and so, you know, who goes first? The non-native axis deer, and
yeah.
is what it is.
But the red deer population in Scotland has been for like hundreds of years managed really well. You know, just to the right number of load capacity on the land, amount of stalking clients or people that want to stalk. They've kind of got the balance just right because they manage the land just right, and they keep the herds moving around, and they just done a really good job. And so to come in with some sort of urban government bill that just says it's just a numbers game, you're killing my trees, I want them gone, has just really impacted that health of that whole population. It's disastrous.
Going back to the gamekeepers, if there wasn't a fox hunting ban, would there be more value in having foxes around so that they could sell more hunts or have more members join their clubs, and then they wouldn't be so adamant about wiping out the foxes to protect the birds?
Yeah, I mean it's sweating the assets, so to speak. We've only got a little bit of land here in this country, as you said before. It's your vision of it is like overpopulated, small, densely populated country, which is true. In certain areas, and so if you're able to get more use out of the land, as well as shooting by hunting, then that's basically how it always used to be. But commercial shooting has risen, big days of 500, 1,000 pheasant days. You didn't used to have that when I was a kid, when I was younger. You didn't have those big days. So that's kind of filled the balance. But yeah, I mean, where I live here in Northumberland, the Duke of Northumberland used to like fox hunting more than anything else. And if he went onto a piece of land and there wasn't a fox, that tenant farmer would be getting a phone call from his agent that night saying, make sure next time we come there are some foxes. So used to keep a bit of a balance going there, whereas now you don't even see them on the roads anymore. You see foxes knocked over on the roads because that's actually the biggest cause of death in the country is foxes getting run over. You used to see them all the time on the roads, even just waiting to cross the road. I hardly ever see a fox run over now. There's just not that many left.
Okay, interesting. Well, I think it started with Bambi in 1942, the Disney movie, and then 1981, the year I was born, they came out with The Fox and the Hound, and that painted a nasty picture of the houndsmen, right? It was and it was intentional. And then 2020, we've got The Lion King that comes out, and it's the most realistic animated animal film of all time. And the point of all of that is this: the evolution of anthropomorphism and giving wild animals human names, pretending like they have human traits. And what it does is it creates this side effect for people that live in the concrete jungle that are really never outdoors, and they get emotionally tied to these animals, and then completely detached from the natural world and the fact that nature is unforgiving. It's kill or be killed, eat or be eaten. There's no in between. It's a fight for survival. And like you said, like what the vital role that you guys played in that, in that chemistry between man and beast is now gone. And it's so easy for someone to be sitting there watching TV and see a PETA ad and like, yeah, I'm down with that. Look, the way those people treat animals is inhumane. But again, the detachment from reality and the natural world I think that's the problem. Certainly, what I see in America, I'm sure it's honestly worse in much of Europe than it is here. We're fighting tooth and nail. I mean, they're trying to ban mountain lion hunting in Colorado right now. I don't know if you're aware of that. I've killed a
Yeah,
mountain lion in Colorado. I ate the mountain lion. It was delicious. I would love to have that experience again someday. I'd love for my son to have that experience again. But it's an attack on hunting. They call it a trophy ban, but um, the lions are managed very well with strict quotas, seasons. You don't kill females. We put I think it was 5 or 6 females up a tree, and
yeah,
they're saying that hound hunting is inhumane. It's inhumane for the cats. Guess what? That helps us shoot the right cat. Like, we can
yeah,
sex the cat, we can age the cat, we can see if the cat has kittens or
mm,
a subadult offspring with it, and then you don't shoot that cat.
yeah,
So it's a wonderful management tool. And then I just saw another headline from California yesterday: 5-year-old attacked by by mountain lion outside of Los Angeles. Well, California banned mountain lion hunting in like 1994, and
yeah,
here we are. And guess what? The same number of cats are still being shot now. You're just having to pay the government to shoot them. It's
yeah,
asinine.
sure, yeah. Well, I think the natural, I mean, the anthropomorphism is a real problem. You know, Beatrix Potter with Peter Rabbit with his little blue coat on, having a
Yeah.
cup of tea, sitting underground in a sort of dining room. You know, it's a madness. Um, and there's a massive detachment from people today, certainly in the UK, with where food comes from.
Mhm.
So they don't equate um, animals with that packet that they've just bought from the supermarket. It's just so far removed. And that's a bit of a problem because then you get the animal rights extremist guys, Peter and all the rest of it, um, coming in, just really pushing this one hard. And what we would say natural hunting is um, the animals that we're using to hunt and the animals that we're hunting are naturally adapted to being hunted. You know, like a hare
Mhm.
has got a blind spot in front of its face, as you know, and it's so that it can see 180-degree field of vision behind it when it's being chased by a lurcher. Well, that's millennia of natural um, adaptation
Yeah.
to the fact that it's a predator. So if they were all going to get really stressed and like have post-traumatic stress disorder because they'd just been hunted, they would have died out.
Yeah.
You know, they go back to breeding, eating, whatever they're doing within minutes of being hunted. And the main thing is if they're caught by a pack of hounds, they're dead. There's no wounding. There's no possibility of being wounded. It's either dead or it's escaped.
Yeah.
And we'll generally get, you know, foxhounds 70, 80 pounds in weight. A fox is like 18, 20 pounds in weight. Much, much bigger animal. And a foxhound doesn't want to get bitten by a fox. It's got a nasty bite. So it will go head, neck, thorax. And that thing's dead in seconds
Yeah.
and properly dead. And and so we would be a foxhound because it's quite slow, hunts by scent. They almost like a wolf pack down in the Yellowstone with the elk. They target the ones that are diseased or ill or got mange or fleas or are old and got no teeth. They're going to die of starvation, skinny thing. And they'll go and pick that one out. And if there's a fresh fox gets up, a healthy one, they can tell, they know that.
Yeah.
Their olfactory system will know the difference. And so we, in a way, kind of hoover up all the ones that nature could kind of do without and leave a healthy population. So we're pretty happy with the whole concept of that in wildlife management.
Mhm. Well, I think you don't give our wolves enough credit because they'll kill a trophy bull just as easily as But they just what's in front of them, they're going to try to kill it, and they're so efficient at it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, yes, if there's a weak one or a strong one, they're going to pick the weak one,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
As
sure.
any, but they will still kill plenty of trophy animals. They don't really discriminate.
Yeah,
Um, but so the foxes are actually dispatched by the hounds. So if you had a group of 30 hounds, the foxes, you don't need to shoot them. That's probably videos of that part of the hunt get out. Social media doesn't help,
yeah,
and that's, I'm sure, used as fodder against our cause.
it is. Yeah, yeah. Well, it is. And then you bring it back into an understanding of like no idea where food comes from. Peter Rabbit's got a blue coat on and drinks cups of tea at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm,
And the whole thing looks like a train crash to you. And it's like, how could you possibly be doing this? Whereas we go, well, we've been doing it for quite a long time. You know, if you take it back to the
right.
old cave paintings, you know, guys running around with fast dogs chasing deer. We've been doing that quite a long time, and we've adapted and evolved it to be as efficient as we can get it, whilst remaining natural. And so I've only, I've hunted all my life since I was about 9, and I've only ever seen, when people say, "Oh, you bloodthirsty
Yeah.
killers," you just do it because you want to see an animal tortured to death. Well, if I did, I'm in the wrong game, because I've only ever seen five. I've only ever seen it 5 times
Uh-huh.
where hounds get close and kill a fox. Because normally, we're just spectators on horses. We're just watching the hunt. Quite often you're, half a mile behind, or it's in a wood or thick cover, and you wouldn't actually see it. So the majority, and the only reason I saw it 5 times is because I got sort of promoted, if you like, within the hunt. So I was in charge of looking after all the riders. So I was kind of up front. Whereas most people behind me, we never seen a fox killed in their life, quite possibly,
Uh-huh.
having hunted all their life. So if anybody thought we did it because we liked seeing foxes getting killed, we'd be mad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I see. I posted a video on my Facebook of I think there was 3 hounds. So I don't know where this was. I would have thought it would have been in England, but this fox jumps out of a burrow. This hound jumps into the air and catches it in the air, and then they go over this ravine. Then the other 2 hounds come down, and very quickly the fox is dispatched.
Mm.
And my point wasn't to glorify that process when I posted it. The point was like, this is what these dogs were bred to do. Look at how efficient they are.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the amount of hunters, air quotes, that took issue with that, saying that it was savage. Why would you ever let a dog kill another animal? The dogs are supposed to flush it, and then the hunter's supposed to shoot it. And I'm like, the hunter would have shot the dogs. Like, it happened in a nanosecond. That fox leapt out of a burrow, and that hound caught it in a split second.
Yeah.
And then it was over. The fox was done.
Yeah.
But so many people thought that was so savage, and I'm just like what you just said. We've been hunting game with dogs for thousands of years, as long as we've domesticated dogs, and then specifically bred them for certain traits. Like, and the fact that that is so foreign to people is what is also mind blowing. Like, how do you think we got here as humans?
Yeah. Well, it's the oldest try at life. Hunting is the oldest try at life. The guy that got on to breed, sitting on the old elk skin rug round the fire in the cave, wasn't the guy that came back with a handful of strawberries. It was the guy that came back with a massive, great leg of venison, and fed the family. And that's how we evolved. I think successful hunters bred successful families, people, and here we all are today. So a lot of these guys are probably DNA related to hunters, or they will be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because if we did a funny experiment recently where we looked at our anti-dog hunting legislation, and we just replaced the word dog for cat, like domestic cat. And that was a very interesting piece of work to do, because if you tried to go and, you take responsibility for a cat, doesn't need to go and hunt. It's a domestic animal. It gets fed a can of food every day, goes out its little cat flap, goes where it wants without permission on somebody else's land. And we got 11 million cats in the UK, they reckon. And the Mammal Society did a study, and they reckon they kill 275 million birds and mammals a year.
Oh.
And they did, like a cat likes to toy with a thing for whatever reason. They had 4 RSPCA, which is like Royal Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Animals in the UK. 4 of their centres took in something like 4,000 animals that had been half wounded by cats. And on average, they took about 3 days to die. So when you multiply that out to 11 million cats, 275 million prey, the biggest wildlife kind of crime going on in this country at the minute is old Mrs. Miggins with her little pet cat going and slaughtering a load of blue tits.
Mm-hmm.
That's mad, and they wouldn't go near that with legislation. They think that's great. Or these great, back to the trophy hunting African plains, let's say. You watch a lion or pride of lions take down a zebra. I mean, that thing's eaten from the inside out and it's still blinking.
Yeah.
That's not killed quickly.
Yeah.
And everyone's queued up there in their Toyotas with the cameras going, "Ooh, look at that! Isn't that fantastic? Let's get another few photographs." I mean, who's the bad guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's that detachment from here's here's Lion King versus here's reality. You know, are these dogs expensive? The ones that you hunt with?
There's no money. Foxhounds are, there is no money in, you can't buy a foxhound. You couldn't sell a foxhound. They're not free, but there is no price to them. They don't have a price. I
Huh.
think in the past, I'm not exactly sure, but somebody knows a lot more about hunting than I do, an older guy who's a friend of mine. He said years ago, because the bloodlines of hounds were, so important, that the money for them just got astronomical. It was just stupid money, like 40,000 quid for a dog or something
Uh-huh.
years ago. And so the hunting associations all got together and basically said, right, we're just going to cancel all money. There's no money involved. They just get, we can breed some, and a hunt down south will say, we would like some of your bloodlines in our pack to like improve it a bit, or vice versa. And guys just chuck them in a car, run up and down the country, say thanks very much, stop for the night, have a bite to eat, leave the hounds, and then the favour comes back a few years later when you want some hounds from them, and there's no cash, so they don't cost
Huh.
anything.
Very interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked my my lion outfitter in Colorado, and I spent 18 days over 3 trips with this guy. So I got to know him really well and got to know his dogs really well. And he probably had 30 dogs, and he'd run a pack of 7, on average. And he'd have all the intact males that were super aggressive run together. He said if you run those with like a cut male, they'll kill him. And
Really.
so yeah, they couldn't run together. And then he'd have females and cut males would run together, but all different dynamics, and all certainly each one had the dominant dogs in their little pack. But I asked him, he had this one bitch named Mickey, and she had like some blue tick in her, and then some looked like Walker in her. She was a mutt. All of his dogs were just, he breeds this dog because of this trait to this dog. He doesn't care if they are a black and tan or a coon hound or a treeing walker or whatever. It doesn't matter. Red bone. And I asked him if I wanted to buy that dog from you, which I didn't. I was just wanting to know what he valued it at. What would you sell that dog for? He goes, and he's not a rich guy. He's like, I think, I would have to start at $50,000. I said, $50,000? You've got 30 dogs. He goes, yeah, but she's has the coldest nose. She catches the most lions, and every lion hunt I do is $5,000. And over the course of her, say she hunts for 10 years, how many lions is she going to catch me? It's like, yeah, I wouldn't sell her for less than 50 grand. And I probably just wouldn't sell her.
Yeah.
But, it would, to even get me interested, it would cost that. I was like,
Amazing.
yeah. So
Incredible.
uh-huh.
We
Yeah.
we recently, I mean, that just doesn't come into our mind because there's just no cash in it.
Yeah.
But recently, because they banned hunting in Scotland just over the border where I live, and where we hunt, like 50% of our hunt country is in Scotland, and that was the best bit, to be honest, in the hills, and that's all been made illegal now about a year ago. So you can only hunt with 2 hounds, and just nobody does, because what are you going to do with 2 hounds? It's just a joke.
2 hounds just won't catch a fox, huh?
Well, they find it. The reason we take 30 hounds is not because we like running after 30 dogs. The least, the better. It's because some are good at finding, some are good at scenting, some are
Right.
good at spotting, some are good at killing, some are good at pushing through hard cover. So you need this kind of combination of a pack, and also that volume of dogs will put a fox under pressure. Two dogs just wouldn't put a fox under pressure; it would just run away, looking over its shoulder, kind of laughing at you. And if you have a bad scenting day and you lose the scent, then 2 hounds are going to take forever to find that scent, whereas 30 you could find it in a couple of minutes or something, let's say. So we sent we when they banned it in Scotland just recently, the hunting packs there became drag hunting packs, which is just following a artificial scent, like a man with aniseed on his shoes running around a field, and they follow that aniseed. So no animals involved. So because you need less dogs to do that, you're not going to keep 70 dogs in kennels, which is expensive and time consuming. So they reduced the size of the pack. Now, I wouldn't like to say what was going to happen to those dogs because they're not domestic. You can't keep them in the house. They're pack animals. So we had a French hunting friend, Anthony, and he came across here to stay with me for 3 days. I showed him around 3 different packs, and he went away with some hounds back to France. with all the paperwork and all the rest of it. And I was speaking to him today. Funnily enough, he rang up this morning, and I was trying to give it my best French. I think I understood what he was talking about, but I'm not sure. And he's got some of our Scottish hounds down there, and they will hunt with a French foxhound pack, doing it for real. And I just thought, there's every bit about this story that's making me feel good. I don't want these things shot,
Yeah.
Because of a law. They're our best friends. They're our blood brothers. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's how we are. And so the fact that they're down in France now, probably sweltering away in the heat, and they'll be hunting foxes this season, that's preserving the bloodlines. And if we ever get ourselves organized back in this country to allow a bit of common sense to prevail one day and let the Bambi thing go, we hope that they'll all be registered and on a stud book, and they'll be written down. We'll know where those hounds are, what the bloodlines are, and we'll get them back.
That's cool. So he's
Yeah.
a caretaker at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It transcends from wildlife to hunting dogs in this case, because like you said, they're not pets. You can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna let the foxhounds come in and play with the kids. Not happening. But if it pays, it stays, right? If there's a value there, whether that's a lion, an elephant, a white-tailed deer, a red deer, it's going to stick around.
Yeah.
And in this case, hunting dogs.
Hey, there was a wonderful.
Go ahead.
There was a wonderful tale, which again was told to me by that same guy, the older chap, during the Second World War, when we were here, and the Americans hadn't come into the war at that stage, and they were humming and hawing about whether they should, probably quite sensibly. And this, because things were getting so bad in England, that this guy called Mr. Scott, who was a master of foxhounds down in Gloucestershire, he got his entire foxhound pack and he put it on a ship and he sent it to New York to preserve it, because he didn't know what was going to happen with the war. The Germans could have come and taken over the country. And Hitler banned fox hunting, funnily enough, because he wanted to break up the social cohesion of the country that he was about to take over himself. So he banned fox hunting in Germany, or hunting with dogs. Anyway, so this guy, Mr. Scott, sent his hounds to New York. They arrived in the local hunt there. I can't remember the name of it, but the American hunt. These guys all turned up with their hunt livery on and their coats and just looking good. And they marched them down Fifth Avenue to as a bit of a parade, and then boxed them up and took them back to the kennels. The Americans, this is so the story goes, we like to think that fox hunting saved Britain, but the Americans looked at it and it was in the press and they went, oh my God, if it's got to the stage where a British master of hounds is sending his hounds to America to keep them safe, things must be bad. Let's maybe take this a bit more seriously. And it really got the attention of the American press.
I'd never heard that. That's interesting as well. I asked you how public perception had changed in your lifetime, and obviously the hunting ban in 2004. My friend Ivan Carter, who's a well-known, he used to be a PH, now he's more of a filmmaker in Africa. He told me years ago that when he would travel, he'd get on a plane and someone would ask him, he's probably your age, he's probably in his mid-50s, but someone would ask him, what do you do? And he would say, I'm a dangerous game PH. And then they would be intrigued and they'd be like, well, tell me about lion hunting or elephant hunting. He says now, like if someone asks him on that same flight, he never even brings up the fact that he's a hunter.
Yeah.
Because it used to be looked at as a, something of esteem. And now, because of a lot of it, social media, a lot of it, PETA, Humane Society, name the culprit. But now there's a negative stigma attached to that. And it's like, doesn't even want to start the conversation. And it's sad that that's changed because there are no greater conservationists than hunters.
Yeah. Well, that's the same here. You wouldn't lean over the school gate at picking up time and say, what are you doing? You say, oh, I love fox hunting. And you just wouldn't say it. Yeah. Which is such a shame, because in a way, I mean, some of the work I've been doing is in the sort of protected minorities legal space. And that whole thing about discrimination of a minority group, an ethnic minority group, which we are as hunters, it has reached such a point over here. People get arson, get their houses burnt, cars smashed up with baseball bats and iron rods and things, trashed, smashed cars to pieces. People get stalked. They get people sitting outside of hunt kennels all day, 24/7, watching and waiting and seeing what they're doing. You know, these guys have got kids inside the house
Yeah.
and a wife and everything else. The online abuse is ridiculous, and the sort of perception, public perception, because of all this, you know, it's got to a point where people go, "What? You can still actually go hunting? I can't. I thought it was banned 20 years ago." And all we've done for 20 years is just sat there and take it with a mantra of keep your head down, it'll all be okay, and it'll all go away, and we'll be fine. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, madness. So we've now got a Labour government coming in, or is in, and in its manifesto, it's committed to ban trail hunting, which is basically like artificial hunting. It's not actually hunting an animal. It's just hunting a scent.
Uh-huh.
And they're saying because that is like a smoke screen to go actual hunting, because you might bump into a fox and chase it. We're going to ban that too. So they're just banning what effectively is an equestrian canine sport, recreational sport. But that just shows how misguided these guys are. And we've just sat there and done nothing. I've come into the frame about 3 years ago and thought it's time to fight back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so
that's
that's why you founded the Hunting Kind.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because it was during COVID. You know, I was in the military for 12 years, a British Army soldier, then officer. And then I spent about 20 years after that doing security consulting in the Middle East, North Africa, South America, Far East, Africa, wherever I could go. And it was only during COVID that I had 2 years at home because I couldn't travel. Those oil contracts had dried up, let's say. The last thing I was doing was gold mining in Colombia, which was brilliant fun. But it all dried up. And so I had 2 years at home with the family, 3 kids, my wife, and we were allowed to go hunting. It was one of the activities that you were allowed to do by the government. So I had 2 seasons, one after the other, 2 days a week, doing what I'd done when I was a kid. And like occasionally throughout my army career, I got the odd days hunting, but I never really did because I was too busy. So I had 2 years fully concentrated hunting, after which I went, I'm never going anywhere ever again. I'm staying in Northumberland, mate, and I'm gonna hunt till the day I die. And so I started looking at what was going on politically and just got this massive, I don't know what you call it, just sort of excuse that everything was getting worked out in Westminster, you know, in politics. It just absolutely wasn't. Nothing was happening. We were just sleepwalking into oblivion. So I thought we better do something about it.
Yeah, well, I think for a long time, we as a hunting community, and certainly in North America as well, we're way too apathetic, but globally, even more so. And apathy only gets you, you know, it's bye. You're going to lose your rights. You know, there's no excuse for it. And I think a lot of it was people are just uneducated, or hunters by and large are the type of people that just want to live and let live. Although the radical side says live and let live, but they don't actually do that. They say live, and if you don't do it like I want you to, then F you. Where we actually are just like, you know what? Do you want to call yourself a girl even though you have a penis? Fine, whatever. I don't care. Fine, live in that mental delusion. I'm not going to judge you for it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to do the same for me and just let me own my dogs and go chase rabbits?
Yeah.
They don't live and let live, but we do, and that's why we've been on our heels for so long. And I'm done, dude. Like I'm glad to hear you say it, and I've been saying it for a couple years. I'm done being polite about it.
Yeah, good for you.
There's no reason to anymore, because you know where it gets us? Nowhere.
Well, we've just seen, you know, we just witnessed. I mean, the hunting ban came in 2004. Can't remember how old I was, about 30 or something. You know, that was a massive part of my life stopped and changed by the government. Just seen the Scottish one happen, and I hunt in Scotland as well, so that's another one. Thank you very much. They're trying to do it in Northern Ireland, but we stopped them in 2021. We got it reversed because we got stuck in, and we got it reversed because we got stuck in. We went to the Irish politicians and said, right, guys, this is your cultural heritage, this is your wildlife management, and particularly in Northern Ireland, which you'd all know, this is about community cohesion. So you can get a Republican guy and a unionist guy, and they'll be hunting with the same pack of hounds, and they'll be best of friends. You know, that just transcends all politics. And so it worked in Northern Ireland. So
not here. We don't have. There's not a lot of Democrat politicians that are. If they do hunt, they don't put it out there because their party would cannibalize them.
Yeah,
there's plenty of Republicans that do and are proud of it. And there
Yeah,
are some, I'm sure there are some Democrat congressmen, senators that do hunt, but you'll
yeah,
never know. They won't let that.
yeah,
They won't let that cat out of the bag. But in Northern Ireland's case, it's part of the culture enough to where they would be hunting together.
yeah. Well,
Huh.
they're more, Northern Ireland's more of a rural place. It's
Mm-hmm.
more in touch with its rural roots. So you can have a guy living in Belfast, and it's probably quite likely that Uncle Jimmy's got 5 acres, 30 miles away with a couple of donkeys and a few sheep on it.
Mm-hmm.
Much more so than here. I'm not being trite and saying they don't have good
Right.
farming, because they have some of the best farming in the world in Northern Ireland, biggest sheep population in Europe, and really, really good ground for farming. So they're proper farmers. But they're just much more in touch with their rural roots. So their politicians get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really cool.
Well, so you are trying to get hunters labeled as a minority group,
Yeah.
and that's interesting and something that maybe we should be looking towards as a concept as a global hunting community, because they're coming for us too in America. Like, we're not immune to it. It's everywhere all the time in your face. They're relentless and they're well funded and they're well organized. That was
Mm,
another thing. For a long time we weren't organized
mm,
at all, because again, we just want to be left alone.
yeah.
We're not hurting you. Leave us alone, man. Just let us do our thing.
Yeah.
Um, but that, like I said, gets you absolutely nowhere. So what is the legal situation as far as trying to get hunting legally accepted as a minority group?
Well, we are basing the whole thing on the 2010 Equality Act.
Mm-hmm.
So, so it's only 14 years old. And the equality, prior to that, the rights of all those people you just mentioned, with or without penises. Um,
Mm-hmm.
those guys didn't, a lot of people didn't have rights, even people from the gay community. I think it was only in 1967 in this country that it was made legal to be gay. Up until then it was illegal, judged
Mm-hmm.
immoral, and I think they almost considered it a sort of illness. If you were gay, you kind of got treated. Um, and look at today, everything's just far more permissive and live and let live. Brilliant, great stuff. So we're looking at the Equality Act, and I had to do a sort of ethnographic study survey on my hunting community and asked them all sorts of questions about really what hunting meant to them and how much they valued it and how much of their life it was. So not the technical side, just what it felt like. And then I got that peer reviewed by social anthropology professor of human animal studies, and from a moral, ethical, and scientific point of view by a well-known scientist, zoologist. So I put that submission forward to a legal counsel, like King's Counsel, um, barrister on human rights. And he looked at the case in terms of having protections afforded to it as a minority ethnic group. And everyone, the minute you mention the word ethnic, everyone flies into a tiz and think you're talking about something else. All all ethnicity means in this sense is people who coalesce around a community that they identify with
Mm-hmm.
because of their shared customs and traditions and language and literature and art, which is hunting. So he looked at that and said, well, you've got just as much right to be recognized as a minority group that needs protections, because you do qualify on all these. There are 5 points to qualify for, and
Uh-huh.
we qualify on all 5 of them. So he looked at it and said, it's not the kind of normal thing that you'd expect to get protected. Hunting, people think it's privileged and elitist and all the rest of it. Why would you need protections? Well, we think we do because of the way we've been legislated against and discriminated against
Yeah.
in this country. And so we very simply, just in a very clean, clinical, legal sense, had probably the top guy in the UK from a legal position look at this. And he came back and said, Ed, 10 out of 10, you absolutely qualify. If you were to run onto the floor of the House of Commons tomorrow and say, right, hands up who wants fox hunting, you wouldn't win. So you don't do it like that. You prove cases of discrimination against you, and you get it established in case law that it is your philosophical belief in natural hunting. And because a philosophical belief is a protectable characteristic
Mm-hmm.
under our Equalities Act, a bit like a religion is. You know,
Right.
you don't get born with a religion. You kind of nurture it, or you adopt it, or you get it pushed on you, whichever way. But you know, you're not born Christian. You're just born. You might be born into a Christian community, but
Right.
so it's having that philosophical belief around about natural hunting, which is a sort of environmental, uh, biodiversity friendly way of managing animals in the countryside and man's place in it. And we think
Hmm.
it's selective, humane, um,
Scientific.
environmentally sensitive, scientific,
Hmm.
sustainable, all these things. So because we weren't coming out asking for some sort of lunatic thing to be protected by law, we're actually getting something that's quite spiritually deep and quite philosophically deep. This human rights barrister took it seriously, and took it even more seriously when I got my checkbook out, um, and did a really, really, really thorough, proper, decent job. And he's come back and gone, guys, you qualify 10 out of 10. You just got to get it into case law. Your philosophical belief to engage in natural hunting will be adjudged as worthy of respect. And then, a bit like a Jewish guy who prays the way he wants to, kills food the way he wants to. It's not a case of, you don't throw that out to the majority in the country and say, right, hands up. You know, 85% of people disagree with halal slaughter. He said, I couldn't care less. It's in the rule book. It's part of my protected belief as a religion. That is protected by law. I don't have to get you to like it.
Yeah.
That is just the case. And so he said that's the only way to do it, because Peter and the Antes and Bambi and Peter Rabbit have
Yeah.
done such a good job on this that you're never ever going to win it in a democratic vote, let's say.
For sure. Yeah. There's just no way in today's
No.
society. Yeah. So
So
this
I hope
is,
that's kind of clear, a little bit clearer, but that's where we've gone with it. And
yeah. And it makes complete sense, as evidenced by the guy who's, that you hired said,
yeah,
yeah, you just got to get this into case law and prove that you're being discriminated against. And then you take that to the floor and say, look, and we are a minority. I don't know what percent of the population hunts in the UK, but in the United States, it's like down to 6% now. It's not good. Yeah.
yeah. I don't
Mhm.
know. That's a very good question. We've never ever. I've asked it a million times. We've never been able. All the. I represent about 20 hunting organisations, or they've kind of associated with Hunting Kind, let's say. So we're kind of multidisciplinary. And I've gone to each one of those and said, how many guys have you got in your membership, in your terrier federation, or your lurcher group, or your hunting group? Nobody's got a clue.
Mm.
The sort of wet finger in the air, rough idea. They couldn't really say, but the figure that keeps getting thrown at us is politically 85% of people in this country want hunting banned because they think it's disgusting. And then I go, I mean, I had a conversation with a Peter campaign manager on BBC, BBC Five Live the other night on the
Mm-hmm.
news on a radio program. And so they lined up this woman from Peter, and she was coming out with the usual arguments about it's barbaric and cruel and horrible and you're disgusting and all that stuff. And then she went, look, 85% of people in this country don't want you to do it. I went, correct. So the 15% of us that are left, by definition, are the minority that thinks it needs protecting, is it not? There's no argument to that. So it isn't, yeah, we are a minority. Thanks, you just proved it.
Yeah.
So keep going, because the more hate speech you give us, the more discriminatory you get, you're actually just helping me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You help
Let's
me
get
get it.
those examples in case law ASAP.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the way that we track that is each state knows how many hunting licenses they sell, and then you just say, okay, there was 7 million hunting licenses sold divided by the population, right? Whatever. There's your number. You
Sure.
guys don't have to buy a hunting license?
The closest we have is a shotgun certificate and a firearms license.
Uh-huh.
So you can work out how many people have got a shotgun or a firearm. Um, Hunting with hounds, no. If you're registered to be part of the organization that represents Hunting with Hounds, we know, because we've got a book with it in. There's 242 registered packs of hounds in this country,
Mm-hmm.
and there'll be 5 times that number that aren't registered, just guys out the
Right.
back there with a handful of hounds. Uh, and then you've got the guys with running dogs and lurchers. I mean, they're not in clubs anymore because they've been made illegal, probably
Yeah.
more so than us. And so there's just no way of knowing how many they are. I mean, you could look on Facebook and see that there's 50,000 people in their group, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite difficult. No, we don't have a system really that tags it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's why, by and large, our wildlife management philosophy system, I think it's the best in the world. If we leave it alone and just let it do its job naturally, and hunters obviously are the gamekeepers, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
I think
but
you've nailed it. Your system is absolutely brilliant. That's what that's what we should aspire to. And I
yeah,
was talking to a guy, an American fellow called Tom Opry, who made a film over here about Scottish gamekeepers called The Last Keeper. Really, really good documentary he shot last year, and he's been showing it around the UK recently. Um, and he's talking about moves in America to get a right to hunt. You know,
mm-hmm.
similar sort of thing to me. So I keep in touch with Tom quite a bit. Um, but your streets ahead of us, I think, and you've got a different population, and the way you raised and founded your country, is based is not that long ago compared to us, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more in living memory. And you got someone like Kevin Costner running around doing Yellowstone. We love that over here. I mean, everybody I everybody I know over here, hunting, farming, shooting guys, they've done the season 7 times round. We're waiting
Yeah,
for the next one because we love, or I do. I love that pride, that American pride in who you are and what you've got, and I think that's golden.
mm-hmm.
And and you're much more likely to get that across the line than we are in a public sense. But the other side of it is we haven't actually tried. We've just sat there for 20 years sitting on our hands,
Yeah.
and just trying recently has had some amazing results.
Well, and that's the key. That's the only way going forward is, no more being apathetic, no more being apologetic. I'm being
No,
like the exact opposite. You don't like it, I don't care. Like the Jewish guy. I don't
yeah,
care. It's my right to do it.
yeah,
And I'm going to fight you tooth and nail to protect that right. Um and that's, I mean, when I started the show 15 years ago, it wasn't as much having to fight, have these conversations to defend our rights. It seems like every year these conversations take place more and more because
yeah,
they are so relentless. It hurts
yeah.
them, hurts their feelings so bad
Mm,
that we're out there enjoying nature and sometimes taking from the resource, but it's a sustainable resource.
yeah,
And we put food on our table. We invite our friends over, and you watch football, and we watch American football. But that's part of the whole circle for me. When the circle closes, it's when I'm eating, and I'm actually not even getting to watch the Cowboys play a lot of the time because I'm on the grill with all the food, right? And all my buddies are drinking my beer and eating my food and having a great time.
right.
And
That's
I'll
how it
run
should
in when
be.
they hoot and holler and they score a touchdown. But
Yeah.
but I love
Well,
that.
that's how it should be. That's the community of hunting. That's the
Mm-hmm.
community is the word over here. It is my community. I can't wait for the hunting season to start
Yeah,
because I know what we're going to be doing.
yeah,
Loads of socializing.
yeah, yeah.
Great.
Well, so where can folks find you guys and support you if they want to?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I got a website called Hunting Kind, and on there's all the various socials that go with it. Um, and really, that's what we're trying to do is just publicize what we're doing, and it's brilliant that it's getting across to the States.
Yeah.
Um, I think it got picked up in the New York Times, which was great. They'd be fairly left leaning and a little bit woke.
Oh yeah.
And actually, I managed to escape that without being utterly slaughtered. Because I spent so long talking to their reporter that she kind of came on my side a bit.
Yeah.
The article was still a bit harsh, but yeah, it's great because that's where it's like the war again. It's like the Second World War. We're sitting here. We could really do with the support of the guys in the States because there's many more of you,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got a big voice, and that's what we need. So I guess, just share the message as much as possible about what we're trying to
Yeah.
do.
Have you ever spoken to anybody within SCI, Safari Club International?
Not directly, but I know the recently appointed SCI head in UK.
Okay.
He's a good mate of mine. He runs a thing called Field Sports Britain. It's like a TV media
Yeah.
channel for hunting. It's got 3.5 365,000 subscribers. So it actually is the field sports news in the UK. And he's the head of the SCI delegation in the UK.
Okay, that's good. They're willing to, they're willing to help out globally.
Yeah.
And obviously you guys have the UK chapter there. So
Yeah.
but yeah, SCI is. I don't think any group does more for the hunting community than SCI.
Yeah.
So
Well, I met them in. I'm part of an organization well, it's a global organization called the CIC, which used to be an old French Conseil International de la Chasse, sort of French thing. But it changed its name more sensibly to the International Council for Game and Wildlife Conservation.
mm-hmm.
And they're all the hunters from all over the world, America, everything, Africa. And I went to a conference they held in Paris last year and I met a couple of SCI guys there, SCI guys. And the bit that got me was on the stage. The president turned up and just said, right, we've got to change the dynamic from being these old Austrian ibex shooting guys with suede trousers and funny hats, because that's not kind of working. We need to be the arbiters between hunting and conservation. And I just went, bingo.
Yeah.
Well said, mate. That's exactly what we need to be. And so the SCI, I think, are all working with these guys together and they all know each other. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Well, again, Hunting Kind is the organization. Ed, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. I've learned some interesting historical things that I, wasn't aware of, like the Tweed River and fox hunting's impact on possibly America jumping in World War II. Cool stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
thanks again for the conversation, and I hope that I don't know how long it will take, but the wheels are turning. At least is trying, as far as trying to get hunting included as a minority group. So, I don't know if we'll ever have to do that in America, but it seems like the walls are closing in on us. So, I'm pulling for you guys to get this across the finish line.
We'll do our best. Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much indeed, and good to hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully someday I'll join you in the field and I'll get that tweed jacket.
Please do. Please do. More than welcome. I'd love to see you.
All right, Ed. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you very much. All the best.